Everyone tells you to build self-confidence, but what if I told you that self-confidence isn't enough? That there's something even more important, something that will make you truly unshakable. Are you curious? If you're new here, I'm Chris, the host of PS Younger Self, and if you're a regular listener, thank you for joining me again. In today's episode, which is part 3 of the Living by Your Standards series of the PS Younger Self podcast, we're going to dive into why developing self-assurance is essential to live by your personal standards. Perhaps, in my opinion, even more important than self-confidence. So by the end of this video, you will understand the clear difference between self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, and of course, self-assurance, and why self-assurance is the missing piece no one really talks about, especially when it comes to self-development. Plus, I will show you how to cultivate this unwavering self-assurance so you can confidently live by your standards. So, are you ready? Let's first get into what exactly makes self-assurance and why isn't self-confidence enough? To understand that, we want to first get clear on the differences between self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, and self-assurance, because these terms are often used interchangeably, but they are very, very different. So let's break down the key differences between these self-concepts, because while I mentioned they're related, they are very different from each other. So first, self-confidence is about what you can do. It actually comes from building experience and practice, like public speaking or learning a new skill. But the thing about confidence is that it can be shaken, especially when you face setbacks or what you think feels like a failure. So let me give you a personal example. So I've been quietly going on castings after getting scouted last year in Lisbon, and it's something that I never imagined that I would be doing. But out of the 5 castings I've been on in the past year, I've only made it to the director's selection once, which is great. And honestly, I know this is all very new to me. It's fresh. It's something I've never done before. But because I like to improve, I question myself, like, am I even cut out for this? But since I knew and realized that self-confidence is built through experience, skill acquisition, and of course, practice, I didn't let this rejection get to me or define me. Instead, I looked at it as a sign that I just needed more reps. I just needed more practice. I needed to develop the skill. So I signed up recently for improv classes, not because I know for sure it'll help me land a commercial role, but because I do know that developing the skill, practicing it, and being around experienced people, I will naturally build more confidence as I develop my skill. So now let's talk about self-esteem. It is about how you feel about yourself. And here's the catch. It's often shaped by external validation. And if you don't actively define your own worth and you know that truly, the world will do it for you. I know firsthand people who meet me today and who have met me in my 30s and today in my 40s as a confident, outspoken woman are often shocked when I tell them that I grew up painfully shy. And I'm not exaggerating here. But the truth is, for most of my childhood and even in my mid-20s, I felt deeply insecure about how I looked. And probably even about how I spoke and just showed up. But why? Because everywhere I turned, the media, even my friends, society, all reinforced the idea that beauty had a certain standard that I didn't personally measure up to. And when your self-esteem is tied to something outside of you, it feels extremely fragile, like you're never quite enough. And that's exactly why Self-worth, which I'm not going to speak to, is so different from self-esteem. While self-esteem can rise and fall depending on external factors, self-worth is deeper. It's about knowing your inherent value no matter what and regardless of anything external. So for the longest time, I didn't understand the difference. I thought feeling good about myself had to be earned through looks, achievements, especially from my parents, or approval from others. But self-worth isn't something you prove. It's something you freaking own. And this brings us to the topic of today, self-assurance, which is where things really start to shift. Unlike self-esteem, which fluctuates based on external approval or validation, or self-worth, which is rooted in our inherent belief in our true value, just as who we are. Self-assurance is all about trusting yourself, your decisions, your judgment, and your ability to navigate the world regardless of circumstances. So what makes self-assurance so powerful, you may ask, is that it is this steady, rooted, deep trust that you have in yourself at your core, not affected by external validation or factors. And it's not just about having faith that you can handle life's challenges, but it's about trusting yourself to remain true to who you are authentically, to your values, to your principles, no matter the circumstances, no matter the pressures that you may feel. Self-assurance goes beyond believing in yourself, which is outcome-based. It's about having this steady inner certainty that in any situation, you know who you are clear on your values and principles, and you're unbothered by others' opinions of you. So self-assurance is like an anchor that keeps you grounded when others start to question your choices, or when your own self-doubt starts to creep in. You no longer need to ask for everyone else's opinion or advice on different life decisions, whether big or small, because you trust your own judgment. It's like the roots of a tree. They're strong, they're steady, holding you firm even in the face of external pressure. It's the force that helps you set your boundaries and uphold your standards. See, when life throws obstacles, because again, they will be many, self-assurance lets you bend, but not truly break. It's the strength to course correct and trust yourself without losing your sense of direction or the core of who you are, your character, while having the wisdom to learn and grow without failing to self-doubt. In short, self-assurance is like this quiet inner strength that lets you live fully aligned with who you are to the core and your choices in life, confidently, unwaveringly, and on your own terms. So did you know this is exactly one of the reasons why that made Steve Jobs such an iconic figure? So let me tell you. In the late 90s, Apple was struggling. Many critics were urging him to follow industry trends to survive. But Jobs, he didn't waver. He trusted his own vision to stay true to his values. Despite external pressures, he didn't seek validation from others, and instead, the story is he stuck to his principles and focused on creating the beautifully designed, user-friendly products that we all know today, that were far from the norm. What we know so well about Apple's innovative products that we all use, many of us use all around the world, is due to Jobs' self-assurance that helped Apple revolutionize the tech industry. It's because he stayed true to what he trusted. His story is a perfect example of what self-assurance looks like in action. Trusting yourself and your own decisions, staying aligned to your own core values and your principles and your standards, despite the challenges and doubts that will come from the external world. So now it's time to dive into the 7 practical ways to build self-assurance. See, these are the practices that have worked for me and that I continue to use to stay grounded. Are you ready? So 1 is to clarify your core values. We discussed this in our last episode in the Living by Your Standards series. So if you want to take a look, don't miss out. I'll click to the link here, as well as add it in the description box of this video. So when your decisions align with your inner core values, you're building a strong foundation for self-assurance. See, it's this clarity that gives you the inner knowing and trust in your choices because they are aligned with who you are to the core. Number 2 is develop internal validation. So instead of seeking approval from others, and ask yourself, does this align with me, my values? Self-assurance comes from within, not from external praise or validation or approval or opinion. By recognizing your own internal compass that you start to build, you strengthen the trust in yourself. And number 3, practice decisiveness. See, I get it. Sometimes making decisions can be tough. We have so many choices these days, but the more you cultivate self-assurance, the more you'll master decisiveness in all areas of your life, whether it's personal or professional, or even something as simple as where to eat. Trust that the decisions you make are rooted in your values, or in the case of choosing a place to eat, it just feels right to you in the moment. The important part here is you stand by those choices you make and you trust in the person you've become, someone who knows themselves clearly and doesn't need to second guess themselves or invite other opinions to help make your life decisions. So 4, learn from experience. This is about reflecting on your past choices and learn from them. See, each of our experience, good or bad, contributes to developing self-assurance, because the more you trust yourself to navigate through life's challenges, the stronger your internal belief is in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. 5, set boundaries. Establish clear boundaries to protect your energy and your inner peace by saying no to when necessary, preserving your integrity and reinforcing your self-assurance. You're not compromising your values to please others, which is a key part of living authentically to who you are. And 6, develop an acute sense of self-awareness. See, this goes beyond core values, which is deeply, deeply important. There are other things that you want to deeply understand about yourself, including just your likes, your dislikes, even your triggers, or what I like to say, activations, what inspires you, what drains you, etc. The more self-aware you become, the better equipped you are to make decisions that align with who you are authentically, and the more you know about yourself that feels right to you. And lastly, number 7, I'm going to be really frank. Stop giving a damn about what everybody thinks of you. You don't need everyone's opinion or advice on your own life decisions, whether they're big or small, unless you're seeking expert advice in an area you're inexperienced in. For example, you need to hire a stylist to develop your personal style, or hire a mentor to help with your business. It's the constant questioning, should I do this? Should I say that? Should I go here? Should I do this? The truth is, everyone is living their life through their own lens, and you have the power to live through your own lens as well. If your mind changes along the way, no big deal. So what? That's just valuable data to learn more about yourself. So free yourself to trust your own judgment, your own values, and your own path forward. It's your life, your choices, and your own rules. Stop letting others dictate them to you. All right, now you've got the full picture of what it takes to build unwavering self-assurance, and it's time to now put it into practice, and I hope you do. Start applying these steps and watch how you start to trust yourself more and grow stronger with your own certainty. And if this provided any value to you, I invite you to watch the full series and come back every month to the Living by Your Standards series, which I will link to here as well as in the description below. And I would really love to hear if this episode provided any value to you and if this resonated with you in understanding the difference between self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, and self-assurance, and why it's so important to cultivate to live by your own standards. So thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for this next video here, which I think you will enjoy. See you again next time.